Welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason. Today I've got a thought for you on the scriptures and how I think we can apply them in wisdom to what's already allowed in our Constitution regarding relationships with others. If you ask me, first off, the Constitution has backup plans for the promises guaranteed. It doesn't have exclusivity for the promises guaranteed. It has backup plans. That's how you guarantee something, is by having a backup plan. So anything that would deal with common defense in particular, it's not exclusive to Congress. I don't buy that at all. It doesn't make sense. So now let's go ahead and move on to discussing the scriptural concept of love. So I'm thinking of the scriptures. I'm thinking how, first off, the highest level of love is greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. Okay, so Jesus has had the most love that anybody who's ever lived on this earth has had. Period. There's been others who've laid down their lives for their friends, but nobody else has laid down their lives for literally every human who's ever lived on the face of this earth. That's Jesus only. Joseph Smith is made comparable, which makes sense. The word for the dead, all that kind of stuff, inviting people from both sides of the veil. So much was established through him. But still, not even close in the end, really. Then Jesus says, I'm the vine, I'm the true vine. As long as you stay with me, abide in me, you are part of the vine, or something like that. And he says, as I have loved you, love one another. Well, how did Jesus love us? He loved us by laying down his life for his friends. And greater love hath no man than this. In other words, so when he's sitting there with the 12 apostles, he's calling them to be willing to lay down their lives for one another, right? Period. That seems to be the obvious conclusion. We're told that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our might, with all our mind, with all our strength, something like that. I'm probably slightly quoting it wrong. It's just a total love. Probably the easiest way to say it, but the list is worth reviewing. I should go back and review it. So that's the highest commandment. And we're told the second great commandment, which, by the way, I want to compare this again to what President McKay said, one of our former prophets. He said, next to being one and worshiping God, there is nothing upon which the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints should be more united than in defending and upholding the Constitution of the United States of America. Why would he say that instead of love thy neighbor as thyself? Well, it's because you cannot love your neighbor as yourself if you're not upholding and defending the Constitution. As I've studied the topic more, and Ezra Taft Benson, The Proper Role of Government, H. Ferland Anderson, his extensive, fantastic commentary. By the way, he was a pen pal with Ezra Taft Benson for a long time, and he was a general authority law professor at BYU, a member of the Utah Congress legislature. He gave us extensive commentary on how we'll be judged based on what our political philosophy is. That's a better demonstration of who we are than anything, and our willingness to control others, to exercise force, because to govern is to force, right? To govern something is to force it to be a certain way. How much are we willing to take government beyond its proper role, right? If you're willing to take it beyond its proper role, you don't love your neighbor as yourself. You just don't. You love yourself, you love your policy ideas more than you love your neighbor's freedom. That's the honest truth of it. Okay, continuing on here. So, loving thy neighbor as thyself. Then they ask, who's our neighbor? And he says, well, okay, so it tells the story of the Good Samaritan. And the guy beaten up on the side of the road, he's here getting beat up. Two fellow Jews pass by and do nothing for him. Then a Samaritan, who isn't even part of NATO, who isn't even part of the Jews, stops and helps him. Right? I'm leading somewhere by the way, with this sneaking in the word NATO. The Samaritan is the one that was more trustworthy. As a matter of fact, he even offered to leave extra money for him, and dropped him off at this hotel, all that kind of stuff, right? Bandaged up his wounds. So that's our neighbor. And we're also told to love our enemies, do good to those that persecute us and despitefully use us, which I find interesting that in the talk defending our divinely inspired Constitution, what President Oaks told us to do is to pray for our leaders that we had at the time. That we should be hopeful. And that's hard, because hopeful, that reminds me of what, Mormon said. Prayed for my people, but my prayer was without faith because of their wickedness, right? Who was despitefully using us? And you might be like, oh, stop bringing politics into it. No, I'm not bringing politics into it. I'm bringing the Constitution into it. Demographic subversion is one of the oldest tactics. Our founders were very aware of it, very concerned about it. They have made legislation on the topic early on. Protection of borders, protection of who's allowed to enter in, all that kind of stuff has always been an important thing. And yes, there was the 1808 deadline for when they could start to significantly enforce it, but it's besides the point. Or the not deadline, but the kind of grace period before they could start enforcing those laws. And anyhow, there's a promise guaranteed in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution that we shall be protected from invasion. The Constitution is said to be for ourselves and our posterity. Nobody else. That's just the honest truth of it. The President has a take care clause to make sure that uniform rules of naturalization are enforced and immigration laws are enforced. And instead, the duty was abdicated. There's no other way to define it. And that's facilitating an invasion. That's a massive violation of the Constitution. Just saying, that is a massive. This isn't politics, you guys. This is the Constitution. I can point to it all day long and just tell you straight up, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I don't care what or a libertarian, right? I don't care. So now, moving on here. Sorry, there's a little bit of grump when I bring up that topic again, and I apologize. I should try to not be too grumpy. And then to love your enemies, to pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. So we were being despitefully used at the time, if you ask me. And we were told to pray for our leaders. That's pretty consistent. So levels of love. Now I want to bring this up here. So President Trump, when he went to arrest Nicolas Maduro, he said he didn't communicate with Congress because Congress leaks. We also saw when President Trump was investigating the abuse of the USAID program in the Ukraine, Congress was less interested in whether or not USAID money was being abused and letting the voters be informed about it. They were more concerned about President Trump politically benefiting from it. And oh no, we can't have that. Even if it helps the people out, we just can't have it, right? So to me, that was wrong. And then we also saw it when the voters asked Congress, hey, and there was enough voters who wanted it, please verify the 2020 election, make sure it was on the up and up. They put on this show for us. They were starting to ask for a investigation into the vote on January 6th. Then a riot happens. That's a tiny fraction of the amount of people that actually live in the United States were part of that. A tiny, 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 tiny fraction. And yet, all of a sudden, these guys who said they were committed to election integrity suddenly say, oh, I can't do it anymore. I think the thing was a setup. Why would you trust them anymore? Because if you really believed that integrity, I don't care. I don't want to debate with you whether or not, there was ballots trucked in or, the machines were modified or what have you. The point is, were they toying with us? Is that seriously, that tiny percentage of Americans rioting at the Capitol sufficient to make you no longer prioritize making sure the election was on the up and up? I'm not buying it, dudes. You're either real representatives of the people or you're not, And then President Trump, giving the State of the Union address, says, stand up if you believe that as a member of Congress, it's your duty to put American citizens over illegal immigrants. The Democrat side wouldn't stand up. Now, look, I'm not making this a pro-Republican thing, but the Democrat side is a substantial side. Something tells me, and I'll say it again, we've heard Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, other people admit to side-handed tactics, I think is what the word for it, that they use to get politics to go the way they want them to go. We've heard Kamala Harris as a sitting senator saying, oh, they should not get out of the streets, they should keep riding in the streets, and Maxine Waters and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't trust Congress as far as I could throw them right now. They don't seem to recognize when one of their own members is probably treasonous, honestly. Really, honestly. Treason is aiding and abetting the enemy of the United States, by the way, which our own USAID dollars were doing that for years, right? President Trump should have been left alone investigating that. So what am I getting at? Congress and the past president, previous president, supposedly, I have reasonable reasons to suspect he wasn't legitimately the president. That he was pretending to be the president, by the way. And it'll take years reversing what he did while not being a legitimate president. But they have abandoned their oaths of office. Now, the reason we have the Constitution is because the Articles of Confederation had certain agreements for common defense and what have you that were left ignored, especially during times like Shays' Rebellion and what have you. And guys like Madison said, the whole agreement's null and void at this point. We're not going along with it anymore. We're starting a new constitution. They started a new constitution. It was worked out, tweaked in the conventions of the states, what have you. And we have the final result of the Constitution plus the Bill of Rights, plus the 11th and 12th Amendment, really, that were given to us by the founding generation. Anyhow, that was given to us because they had abandoned their duty under the previous agreement. I keep saying, if the Constitution is to be saved, President Benson said it won't be saved in Washington. That the greatest power to save the Constitution is in the states and in the people. Look at Article 5, look at Article 6, Clause 3, look at the 9th and 10th Amendment, look at the preamble. The greatest power to save the Constitution is in we the people. There's no power granted in Article 3 to do such a thing. And that's wise. It shouldn't be. It's the most disconnected from the people. But now getting to the deeper point. Sorry, this is 10 minutes into it, 12 minutes into it. Boy, oh boy. NATO. They've been dysfunctional. They've been worthless to us, it seems. I mean, as far as I can tell. You know, we got sucked into this whole thing. I really say we got sucked into it when we didn't have the wisdom to, first off, be an agrarian country, like Thomas Jefferson recommended. Second off, to not at least try to imitate the Embargo Act. Who cares if the economy suffers? Don't get caught up in these entangling alliances, right? So instead, in World War I, American ships kept going over there, blah, blah, blah. One got shot down. All of a sudden, oh no, we're sucked into World War I. You get the Treaty of Versailles, then you get the World War II, inevitably, because of the Treaty of Versailles, right? You get NATO afterwards. NATO is completely dysfunctional. I remember President Benson complaining about, what was it, all the rules that were set on us too when we were involved in Vietnam and all this other stuff, that it was impossible to win Vietnam because of these rules that these entangling alliances put on us. These entangling alliances, to me, as far as I can tell, they've been like the two Jews that walk past their fellow Jew laying down on the road. Okay? Versus Israel, where the majority of American tourists go when they go to the Middle East, right? Or where more American tourists go than any other country in the Middle East, traditionally, and which shares more intelligence with us than any of the other countries there, which is the more free country than any other country there. And people always want to kind of say, oh, the Mossad, this and that, some conspiracy. Maybe, dude, I don't know, but it's besides the point. I can recognize who's my neighbor and who isn't my neighbor. NATO is not my neighbor, man. It doesn't take a genius for that. They're not matching their contribution requirements. They're not helping us out in the Strait of, what do they call it, Vermouth, or how would they say it? Vermouth. Yeah. So President or J. Reuben Clark, yeah, he was part of the first presidency. He said that that we should get out of NATO. That was apostasy for us to be involved in such entangling alliances. And Ezra Taft Benson also, and by his time, he was also saying that about the United Nations, which President Trump's been correcting a lot of this stuff. Plus, he's been, if you think about exposing NATO, getting us out of a lot of the UN stuff, he's been exposing the administrative state or the technocratic state, what have you, ending USAID, all that kind of stuff. And he's been really drawing our attention to how corrupt these courts are when it comes to keeping the promises guaranteed in the Constitution. When they keep blocking him, look, controlling who enters the country isn't an optional duty of the president, no matter what some judge says. It just isn't. It's not. It's part of the take care clause. It's a promise guaranteed in the Constitution. So when he went to Iran, based on intelligence from Israel, I think they're a more trustworthy partner than anybody. They're the Good Samaritan. I mean, it's obvious. You could say the Mossad, all that kind of stuff. Whatever, dude. Maybe there's corruption there just like there is in the United States, too. You know, with our James Comey types and what have you. I have no doubt about it. With our General Milley types, whatever. That's besides the point, dude. In general, our relationship with Israel is a much, they're a much better contributor. They are our neighbor, as far as I can tell. And I think that's good foreign policy. And I think the Constitution allows for backup plans where the promises are guaranteed. I think the Constitution allows for when the president recognizes that there's a treasonous Congress, or in other words, a Congress that leaks, or in other words, a Congress that prioritizes illegal immigrants over American citizens, right? Entangling alliances, all that kind of stuff. When he says, yeah, I'm not going to talk to Congress. Not for now. We got other stuff we got to deal with, right? I think he's in the right. Just saying. And I don't think it's sufficient. It's never going to be sufficient. Sufficient needs to be handled outside of Washington. That's what we've been told again and again. Last in time rule that a prophet has spoken authoritatively on the subject was President Benson. He's told us which things were unconstitutional: entangling alliances, judicial supremacy, and technocratic agencies that exercise all the three powers of government combined in one. With no, President Oaks said it is wrong for the people to have no voice in the creating of their laws. All three of those, no voice in the creating of our laws. No voice in the creating of our laws at all, period. There's not the typical checks, thresholds, everything like that for any one of those three. Okay? President Oaks has said the Supreme Court's still suited to the legislative lawmaking process, because they are. They're terribly suited to it. They're meant for one thing, cases, and that's it. They're constitutionally obligated, as President Oaks says, so to limit their activity to cases before them. So anyhow, a little bit of a rant about the levels of love that we find in the Bible. And yes, I do think we have an enemy within. I think the secret combination is incredibly knowable. Otherwise, you know, why would we be told to compare it to the Book of Mormon, where they were upholding the secret combination? In other words, it's secret because you read the Constitution, you look for it, and it's not there. It's not there. Why is it not there? Where's the secret of it? Where's the secret of it? Oh, it's somewhere between the lines. Oh, no, let's turn it over and put some lemon juice on the back of the paper and then stick it in an oven, right? Well, that's where you found the technocratic agencies. That's where you found judicial supremacy. Oh, that's where you found the right of entangling alliances, adding extra internal management rules for the United States of America. No, not there, dude. It's not there. You're not going to be able to turn the Constitution over and find some hidden thing. It's a secret combination in that you read the Constitution, you're looking for where these things are allowed. Where are they allowed? They're not allowed. And we're upholding them anyhow. That makes all of us complicit. Read Article 6, Clause 3 if you're a member of government at all. Okay? Article 6, Clause 2 and 3. Clause 3 enforces Clause 2, if you ask me. Most obvious thing in the world. Read Article 5. Read the 9th Amendment, read the 10th Amendment, read the preamble, read the whole Constitution. But as far as like understanding who's supposed to fix the Constitution, I think those are the points right there. President Trump's he's just got our back is all. If we don't, and I don't think he even completely knows what he's doing. You know, I find it not not a coincidence that his last name is Trump. And I do believe we have to keep him in check, just like I said, Madison and Jefferson had to keep Washington in check at times, right? When they were in his cabinet. Just because somebody's a good man doesn't mean they're flawless. So or as King Benjamin said, it's subject to all sorts of infirmities, right? Um, so, anyhow, thanks for listening. I think we need to get out of NATO. We need to get out of the UN and Israel for us to be partners with them. I'm sorry, dude. I listen to Ron Paul. I listen to Joel Skousen. I listen to all those guys on a regular basis. And then I also listen to Fox News. Yes, go ahead. Guilty as charged on a fairly regular basis. Blaze TV, fairly regular. I'll shoot MSN or whatever else comes up too, just to hear what the other side's saying, all that kind of stuff. The National Constitution Center versus the Federalist Society versus the Center for Constitutional Studies at UVU, which, by the way, oh my gosh, Utah, get your act together, bros. That's another. Sorry, they're not that great, you guys. Just let you know. But yeah, I think Israel's a better partner. I think President Trump's probably right in this one again, and I feel terrible. Sending people in harm's way. My dad made his career in harm's way as a police officer. There's no such thing as being deployed. That's just this whole life. They're constantly deployed, right? But still, it's not as extreme as what the military does. And so I pray for our military people. And anyhow, thank them, all that kind of stuff. All right, thanks for listening, you guys.